What's up, everybody? This is Joe Riga, and you're about to listen to episode number 6 of the Third Floor Chronicles. This was recorded Sunday, May 8th with Mr. Dana Gould. Check it out. Dana, did you get your start in stand-up in Massachusetts or San Francisco?
I started in Massachusetts 1 week out of high school. My first open mic was a week out of high school at the now famous or infamous Ding Ho in Boston.
How long did you have to work up to actually enter the open mic?
Back then this is 1982, and it wasn't quite as you went there that day and signed up and you got in, and God, it was forever ago, and that was sort of a lark because I went to college after that and I didn't really get into it. Well, no, I mean I did stand up throughout college, so yeah, I would say that was my start.
Well, how long were you thinking about it before you actually got the nerves to do it?
Honestly, but from like junior high, around 1977. When I was in junior high school, I knew that I wanted to be a comedian.
Do you recall how you felt first time on stage? Did you feel natural?
I actually did. I actually had a really good first set, but I was a child. I was 17 years old. I was a child, and I look back on it now, and I'm mortified. I'm still actually friends with people that were there that night. Brian Kiley, who's one of the head writers on Conan, and he was there that night. He was also just starting out. Lenny Clark, the comedian, was the MC that night. So I was actually still people around, but I was literally a child.
When you were doing open mics your first year, how many do you think you were hitting on maybe a weekly basis?
Well, most of my first year were while I was in college, so it was like 1 or 2 a week in dining commons and things like that.
How long were you performing before you started to maybe feature?
Well, I started in 1984. I transferred and was living in Boston, and started hitting the open mics really heavily. And then in Boston, Boston didn't have a traditional MC middle act headliner thing. It had it was like a 3-man tag team show or a 4-man tag team show. And I started to get work in about 1985, 86.
What was the difference that you recall going from Massachusetts to San Francisco as far as comedy?
San Francisco I found the audiences were a lot more refined. Boston is a really rough and tumble place to start out. Because of that, I think I'm a better comic. I think in San Francisco it's a little more comforting, and when you're out in front of a rough crowd, you don't really have the tools to bludgeon them into submission the way you do when you come up in Boston, which is, it's like Liverpool, it's a shipping town. It's a tough town. But if you already have those tools, San Francisco is like taking a hot tub. It's really great. And I consider both places my sort of comedy home.
Do you think you would have been ready for comedy if you performed first in San Francisco versus Massachusetts first?
I think I would have done okay, but I actually think I was so spastic and young and unschooled and horrible that I think I really benefited from having to sort of go through the gauntlet of Boston. I think it sort of beat me into submission in a way that was required.
How did you get into writing comedy?
Well, I always wrote, I always wrote my own stand-up, as everybody does. And then when I sort of moved to LA and got some notoriety, and then I had a lot of deals to do sitcoms. You're the hot new guy, and you get all these deals to have a sitcom about your life, and I had more than my share.
Development deals?
Yeah, development deals to have a sitcom, and I had like 3 or 4 development deals, and a couple pilots got made, and then finally, you work with a writer, and they sort of write the show for you, and then you act in it. And then I had done it enough times that I sort of had a sense of it, and I wrote one for myself. I just kind of sat down and wrote a pilot called World on a String, and that got made, actually. It didn't go to series, but it did get made. And I found that I really enjoyed that process, that I really liked writing comedy, because the writing of it, you got to be funny like stand-up, but you also had to build a structure of a story, and it was sort of like creating a crossword puzzle and then doing the crossword puzzle. I really enjoyed that. And so it was not long after that, a friend of mine said, do you want to come in? A friend of mine who worked on The Simpsons, a guy named George Meyer, said, do you want to come in and do a day a week, just punching up jokes? And it was on a Tuesday, so I could still go on the road on Wednesday. And I thought, yeah, that would be great. And I was there for like 6 months. And then one day they came in and said, your contract is up. And I thought they were going to go, see you later, pal. And the guy just said, do you want to come every day? I was like, sure. And I stayed there for 7 years.
Well, how much were you already a fan of the show when you got off?
Yeah, of course. Like everybody in comedy, I was just like, it was like.
How did you feel when you got that job?
It was surreal. It was also because like I've been there for 6 months, a day a week, so you kind of feel like you're part of the team, and it was quite surreal to say like you go to the parties. What do you do? I'm a writer on The Simpsons. People just automatically assume you're a genius when you're not. But it's still very nice.
How intimidating was it when you first, like, the initial...
Petrifying. It's called pitching, and I pitched some the first day, and then I shut up for a long time until you got to figure out, the show has its own sort of math to how the jokes are written, and you have to wait and figure it out, but...
Did you have to write a spec script or anything? Like kind of
no, I did. Everybody does. I really did. It's exactly how I told it, and it's a cheat. And I know people hate me for it. I mean, I really did back into it, and I'm not going to apologize for it, but I do feel bad for people. I just kind of fell on it.
Ben Stiller show as well, correct?
Yeah, that was just like everybody on that show were my friends at the time, and still are my friends. But, we were all just Ben and Janine Garofalo and Bob Odenkirk and Judd Apatow, and that was my social clique at the time. And when Ben got the pilot, I mean, we were literally just all at his house when the phone call came. So it was just like, okay, what do we do? It's like, what do we do now? I was not I was a contributor to the show. I wasn't a regular staff member.
I've read a lot of stuff online about the comedy condo, the infamous comedy condo.
My apartment in San Francisco.
Yeah. Is there any cool story you can maybe let the listeners know anything?
Yeah, well, it was Alex Reed, who's now a writer on The Middle and was a comedian in San Francisco. When I moved to San Francisco in 1987, we just got an apartment together, and it was just one of those things where you hand it down to somebody else. And I think everybody who's known in comedy now has... I know they've been in it. I don't know if most of them have slept there, but Janine Garofalo lived there. I know David Cross has been there. I'm sure Stiller was there. Jon Stewart has been in there. Everybody has come and gone through that place. And my only story is later when I was on The Simpsons and I was now married and was kind of an adult, and I was up in San Francisco with my wife just on a weekend vacation. And I said, let me show you my old apartment. And I took her into it, and it's just this hovel. And she walked out of there, and she just turned to me, and she goes, "I'm never going in that place ever again."
That's sacred comedy.
It's no longer in the hands of comedians, but it was really gross.
Going back to the comedy writing, how do you think your stand-up influenced your writing when you first started writing sitcoms?
Well, I was good at just writing hard jokes. It was really good because I had stand up. The great thing about The Simpsons is it has people from different backgrounds. It has people that came out of Harvard and people that came out of just very traditional sitcoms, and then I was a comedian. And as a result, it's like staffing a baseball team. People have a different skill set, and I happen to be really good at just like hard jokes. You would say in the business, hard jokes. And then I learned over years the other skills. And the great thing about The Simpsons is it really taught me how to turn and to keep things surprising and unexpected. That's the thing about The Simpsons that's great, is that you don't know what the joke is going to be. You can't see it coming. And I learned that the hard way.
And on the flip side, how has comedy writing influenced your stand-up after working on those sitcoms?
Once I've been doing stand-up, it definitely has. And I think it has allowed me to write bits that are a little more sophisticated, and I feel that I can step back a little bit, and I give the audience a little bit more credit to assemble and deal with a bit that's a little more literate and wordy. I mean, if I were to cite a comedian that's an influence of mine, I would say like George Carlin in the latter part of his career, from like Jammin' in New York on, from like the early 90s on, because he had it was very written and very well documented. He knew exactly what he was saying, and I think that my act is a lot like that in that regard. It's sort of a throwback, actually, It's not a very sort of modern approach. It's pretty well
So you're
rehearsed.
saying your first open mic in Massachusetts wasn't one of those?
No, I had Star Trek jokes. I had everything, man. I had every sweaty. It was like a flea market. I had a little bit of everything.
Currently, how often are you on the road out of a year nowadays?
I go out like once or twice a month. I have other writing responsibilities and other stuff to do in. Oh yeah, no, I go. I mean, I get out. I don't live on the road because I have a family now, and I'm an old man. But I go out. I go out once a month at least. And when I'm in town, I do at least a set a week.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is that where you work on the new material? Or do you try it on the road, or how does that work?
I work on new material, but nothing beats going on the road and having an hour a night and 4 hours of cumulative shows on the weekend to really. I mean, I wrote a bit this week. That whole bit about going to the family restaurant was an old bit that I took the basic idea of and completely rewrote it in a way that's very much in that style that I described to you. It's very written and very performed. And that'll grow over the course of the year. But if I'm not doing a new piece, I get really bored. So I'm always, I did a special last year, and now my goal is to write a new hour and do a new special, and okay. I'm about halfway there. So.
When you're on the road and you're doing maybe 5 or 6 shows in a weekend, are you doing the same set list each night? Or are you switching it up?
No, it's pretty static. It's pretty front to back. Yeah.
And one last question. This is one people always like the most. Describe the last time you ate it on stage.
Thursday of this week was Cinco de Mayo, and not a great comedy night. And I wouldn't say ate it. I have enough tools in my I have enough tools in my toolbox now that I think I can avoid really eating it. But that was a hard show where I really could never take my foot off their neck, and I really had to go to some kind of unsophisticated material to keep their attention. And then like 2 years ago, I was at the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, and I hosted a show, and I'm a terrible host, and I fucking ate it like nobody's business. I was actually laughing at myself. I was all eating it in front of all of the industry. But I had a meal that night.
Well, can you at least appreciate it a little bit more now?
Oh, I find it hilarious. Because I know it's not me. I mean, I know it's like, I'm not up there going, I'm not funny anymore. I'm just like, oh, God, I'm eating it. I can do nothing.
Well, that's it, my friend.
End it on eating it.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode number 6 is in the books. If you like what you heard from Dana Gould, be sure to check him out online on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, danagould.com. And until next time, my name is Joe Riga.